Hello, welcome back to our new season of Monday Night Roundup. Chris here once again to bring you all of the action from the ADBBL in the last week. Obviously, this week's a bit different because there has been no action in the ADBBL in the last week, but we have had the live draw and we do now know who everyone is facing. We know who all of the matchup there, all of the groups are. Some of us are happier than others, and that's fantastic. So we're going to go through all the groups. We're going to have a look at who is playing who, and see how it looks and how people think their season's going to go. And thankfully, you don't have to just sit and listen to me. I have once again brought friends along with me. Once again, I have got from the Batfink Bloodletters, Tom, and from Spank Me Hardy, the Gentleman's Collective, Scott, with me once again. The same people, but new teams. How are we doing?
Good, thanks. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Good.
Very exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting to. I feel like the gap between season 5 and 6 hasn't been very long, but I'm still like there was still like a lack of hype in my life for about a month and a half that that I've needed to fill. So this is nice. Um, Thank you guys for coming. We will dive. I guess we'll before we go into like what the groups are, and we'll go through each group by group. We'll let's go over before the draft, like before we all knew what we were having. All three of us here have got different teams to last season. So, Scott, why is there any sort of thing that meant? I mean, you're an interesting case, Scott, if I'm honest, because you are bringing Skaven again, but you
Thanks.
haven't redrafted. So why the new team?
Thanks for being called interesting, Chris. But then I have been called a lot worse today, so I'll take that as a compliment. Simply, I had a new model I wanted to paint up. I wanted to do a bit more of a color scheme. I love the insanity of Skaven. I love the fact that you can score more than any other team on your day, but you can kill more of your own players on the day. So I had a spare Skaven team, any excuse to build it, any excuse to get a couple of extra Rat Ogre models from Etsy. The retailers online are available. And that was the main thing, really. Nothing more than that.
Well, I guess you bringing Skaven again. Obviously, you're bringing a team you've played before. Tom, you're bringing vampires, which because they've only just come out, unless you got sort of third party stuff, will be a team that you had never played before. So how are you feeling about the vampires?
Yeah, I decided to take them because I just love rolling dice, and that's something you're going to do a lot with them. Every time you want to move something, you have to roll some dice. But yeah, they've been an interesting one. I've played in the off season with them. I've won a couple, I've drawn one, and I've lost a lot. So it'll be an interesting season, I think, for myself.
I think vampire, like we've got three vampire teams, and we'll see in the group stage that we didn't manage to keep them all separate. But I think they're going to be very interesting ones. I've played two different vampire teams in pre-season, so I brought I mean I've brought my lizards with me who I've played in two seasons already. Um, uh, Once again, ditching the human team halfway through the preseason and refusing to stick with them like I did last season as well. Um, I just love playing the lizards. I love the versatility of them and the kind of you proper split down the middle between these guys are just gonna punch and these guys are gonna just try and not be punched. It's a lovely kind of balance between the two, which I'm so looking forward to playing them again because I had so much fun with them before. Yeah, lizards and vampires comfortably like the most represented three teams each of all of them, and yeah, we'll see from the groups sort of how it went. Are there any teams? Tom, we'll do you first. Are there any teams that you're surprised didn't come back from last season, or anyone that you are surprised redrafted, or any shocks that for teams that are in the draw, or that you expected to be that aren't, or anything like that?
Okay. Yeah, I'm interested to see there's a few new Norse teams. I assumed that's because they were very strong in last season. Obviously, Iceborne Raiders won the whole league. Um, but yeah, there's also been there's some other interesting ones. People with Underworld Deniers as well. There's now two of them in the league, and I've always heard that they're quite a difficult team to play. So it's going to be some fun games in there, I reckon.
Hmm. Scott, what about you? Like, I'm like there only being one Corn team is a surprise because Corn were floating around for about 4 or 5 different people. Is there anyone you're surprised isn't here?
I'm actually surprised at how many of existing teams, sort of from season 5 or even season 4, we look at the Ducks, have made a comeback. Really looking forward to seeing some of the nice teams coming through. I thought Jane at one point was going to stick with the Inner Day Animals, but I think she's going to be given the other coaches in her league a very, very tough time with the Underworld as well. But I think
Yes.
there's a lot of teams who are now coming into it. Coaches have changed teams, and we'll come on to them in due course. But if you look at people like, Sam with the Lizard Men as well, he's going up against Rich and the Rams. So going to be, whichever way. There's a lot of interesting fixtures we've got to cover.
There's some really good pair ups in there. There's some really I think every group for me, and we'll look at the groups in a second. I think every group has someone that you think they're getting out, and I think then it pretty much every group I think then is a fight for second and possibly a wild card. Which last season I think there were more groups that you could go. It's probably these two, or it's probably these two, and I don't think that's the case this year. I think it's a bit. I think you've maybe got one standout, and after that, it's looking like it's anyone's game, which is great. It's great that it looks like everyone's got a chance to get out of these groups, which is really really good to see. Um, so the draw, anyone who's not seen the draw, you can go. I think it's on Twitch for another week, and it's on the YouTube channel if you want to see the draw. Um, some teams were left hanging on tender hooks for a while to see who they were going to get picked and whose group they were going to be in, which left for some really, really great drama in there as well. We'll give a quick shout out now to our sponsors. For anyone who didn't see the draw, we've got a few sponsors this season for people who have been very supportive to the shop and to the league, so we want to give them a shout out. We want to give a shout out to Hughes Electrical. Which for me personally is absolutely bizarre that I'm sat here on a live stream shouting out Hughes Electrical that I remember buying the biggest, fattest TV from when I was about 11 with my parents. Utterly bizarre. Very kindly provided us with a laptop that we have for now, making it easier for us to do streams in the shop. Streams now for matches aren't reliant on me being free. So even if I'm busy, which I am, sort of coming up in a few days, but we're still going to run streams because I don't need to be there anymore, which is really, really great. We want to shout out to Matheson Electrical, who do a lot of work at the shop, a lot of the electrics at the shop, the fans, the lights, everything like that. Anything that Scott needs doing, they come and do it. They're a great bunch of guys, and they're supporting us, which is really fantastic. Shout out also to the Woodyard. Anyone who's been to the shop and smelt the pizza as they've walked past, or had someone order it to the shop because there's a QR code you can scan. Will know how lovely the stuff in there is and how lovely they are in there as well. They're such a great friendly bunch, and the pizzas are lovely. It's they're part of the reason why I eat so much pizza. So shout out to them, and also not a sponsor, but also a shout out to Suffolk Mind, who we're supporting and will continue to support throughout the season. We've done really well for our fundraising so far, and we're going to keep going to raise as much for them as possible. So Yeah, those are our sponsors. We had Matheson Electrical pick the first ball yesterday as well. Ironically, picking out another sponsor, which was great. But we will move on from the sponsors and let's go straight in to talk about some of the groups that we've got this season. And the first group, we'll go by the order that they are on tour play. The first group that we will look at is actually the group I'm in, coincidentally, which drew two Lizardman teams. So I was convinced coming into this season that we had three Lizardmen teams, we had three Vampire teams. I was sure that there would be Lizards versus Vampires, and instead we've got Lizards versus Lizards and Vampires versus Vampires. So I was not right at all. But this is looking like a bashy group for me. Two lots of lizards, some shambling undead, and some orcs. Tom, you played orcs last season, so you were probably the best placed person to tell me what I can expect from whether I can get out of this group or not.
Well, you've also got the orcs with a troll as well. So it's super batchy. They've got a full deck of blockers and untrained troll and two blitzers in it, and a goblin for the luck. So you've got some bashing in there, and then you've probably got some random throwing and lobbing of a goblin as well to keep you on your toes. So yeah, I think you've got a bit of a match up there because obviously with your lizards, you've got the strength. They match you on strength. They also have, but they just don't match you on the speed. So just keep your skinks out of the way.
I think this group, to me, the Scale Marys, they're the only redraft in this group. They are like I said earlier, I think there's one team that stands out in each one, and then there's a fight for second. For me, I don't know what you think, Scott. Scale Marys for me seem like the standout in this group.
My question was going to be for you, Chris. You've obviously made the decision with the Ducks to go for no big guy. Now, we know you've got obviously some issues with big guys over the past. That could be misconstrued. So just to clarify with what we're talking about there, we're talking rat ogres or croxigors. Whatever Chris does in his own personal life, that's for him to decide. But you're going in there with sort of no designated big guy. Dave has got his croxigor. Yes, you'll look like you're going to have about 200k inducements. What's your thoughts, Chris? Are we going to see a Croxigor come into the Ducks halfway through the season, or what you thinking?
Yes. I will. There will be a Croxagore in this team if I have the money for it eventually. Um, but to take it off, like to start with, you've got to sacrifice the rerolls, and both I believe. So I think Dave is taking two rerolls with his Scale Marys. If you look at the other lizard team in the competition, if you look at the double yolks, taking the Croxagore, I think taking no rerolls at all because that's your kind of trade-off. And even in practice games, a 3-up pickup shouldn't be too scary, but the amount of 3-up pickups I have not succeeded on in practice games is maddening. And you've like the Skinks have got built-in rerolls for dodge, which is great, but if when it comes to a pickup or a handoff or anything like that, it's all 3-ups, but those 3-ups always feel like they feel like 5-ups because I can never seem to hit them. So I'd much rather have the rerolls than I would the big guy. And the good thing about the fact that I've got Dave in my group, and he's got, you know, to be honest, his Croxagore I'm not too scared of because it's got guard, which is a bit terrifying, um, but and it's got frenzy, which again is a bit worrying, but I'm more scared of the fact that he's got three Saurus with block and some Saurus with guard. They're going to be a lot more troublesome. Um, so for me, it's what inducements can I take to kind of counter that, rather like the Croxagore. I'm just going to try and stay away from it and hope that it boneheads. But it's those Sauruses that scare me.
But Chris, I know you've been ahead of the game, booked in some fixtures. Who are you playing first in your league? in your team?
I believe it is the Scale Marys. That is my
Oh,
first game.
right, yeah.
Currently, they are my first game, and they're currently my last game. So I'm sort of bookending my season with a battle with the Scale Marys. Um, so yeah, I didn't mind who I played first, but in a way, I think if there's a team there that look like they're gonna end my season, it's the Scale Marys. So I kind of think playing them first is probably quite nice, and then I can rebuild after that. Um, a shout out. So that's all the lizard talk though. A shout out to Fink Mob. Andy's bringing Shambling Undead this year. He brought
Yeah.
Black Orcs last year. Um, he had the record last year of the worst run with 5 straight defeats. Um, which is an unfortunate title, but actually I don't think it represents how he played. I think he played better than what a run of 5 defeats would tell you. And Daryl coming in with Orcs. Daryl not new to Blood Bowl, but new to the ADBBL, so welcome to him. Um, I do think it is going to be a bit of a fight between me, Orcs, and Shambling Undead for that second place. I can't see Dave not getting out of this group. I, without, please don't be kind to me. Who is your top 2 from this group, both of you?
Go for it, Scott.
Oh, thanks, Tom. Scale Marys, I have to say, Dave is looking ridiculously strong, buff and strong, definitely. In terms of the next one, I've got to put it past the Lizardmen just because they feel like they've got a bit more flexibility. That's not just purely because you're on the stream, Chris.
If I hide, I'll just come off screen, and then and then you go nuts, you know.
Yeah, I'll just say, yeah. It's going to be Fink Mob or, it's going to be Andy or Daryl. Chris hasn't got a prayer. Are you back, Chris?
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
For me, putting my thoughts at the moment are the 2 lizard men, the 2 lizard teams. However, we have said, and we saw this last year, anything can happen, and it does. So,
Yeah.
what about you, Tom? Where are your colours?
Yeah, I'm wondering whether these redrafts might have targets on their backs, and they might be thinking that they want to try and protect their team members there. But I'm actually going to say maybe the Orcs come through in second, because apart from obviously your Blighty Ducks, they're the second fastest team. Because obviously the Shambling Undead are going to be quite slow, and the way lizards play, they've got a fight on their hands. But Orcs have got a few little surprises. Like I say, look out for those 2 goblins and the troll. Look out for the blitzers. They've got 2 blitzers in there already, and in fact they've also, just looking at it, they've got a thrower as well. So my thrower was quite good. It was a bit of an elf orc last year. So yeah, be an interesting one.
And as John's pointed out with the Fink Mob, Andy last season may have had the kind of the worst streak, but he did score against the Iceborne Raiders, which is not something that only 2 teams did last season. So he had some good performances in that run. So yeah. I'll do my best to get out of that group, and if I'm not out of that group, you'll probably see me doing a lot more on here because I'll have some time on my hands. So we will move on to the next group then, which I should just be able to casually scroll down if it works. Is it gonna let me just scroll down? There we are. Look at that. And we're on to Bifford. So we're on to the next group here. Flumps, Toxin Runners. Apologies to the Toxin Runners for having toxic runners over everything yesterday with my bad spelling. Odin's Ravens and World's Edge Berserkers. So we've got Norse, we've got Dwarves, we've got Skaven, we've got Goblins, we've got kind of the two ends of the bash and sort of speed and dodgy and stunty sections here. And I'm going to start with Flumps because I know Scott's watching. Hello. It's saying we've got too much block in this group, and you are right. There's an awful lot of block in this group for your goblins. It's an amazing strategy that Scott is going for. Scott is not going to take a single player all season that does not have the stunty trait. So that's star players, that's mercenaries, anything like that. If they're not stunty, they are not joining this team. What do we think? What do we think? Scott. Now I know Scott's watching, and I'll be honest, Scott. I think you're brave, but I think you're gonna have this. I think you're gonna have a really entertaining, really fun season doing it. It's very brave and very. I think it's gonna be so much fun to play as. Scott, what do you think?
I think Scott's going to cause a bit of a few surprises here in that case. He's got at least 200 to 300k a match in terms of inducements. I'm looking at the other people as well, and the gut. This Graham's running 4 gutter runners in his toxin runners, so he's not going with the Roger. And we know that gutter runners are good as they are. They're still only strength 2 at the end of the day. So yeah, I think Mr. Norman could do a few little cheeky things, and I think again it's going to be really, really entertaining. You got JD on the Norse as well. You got Jamie with the World's Edge as well. A lot of good coaches in there, but I just think that Scott is going to be one of those unknown quantities, more than usual. Scott, just that's going to give coaches something they haven't maybe faced before, and something. Maybe they just got to roll the dice and see what Nuffle says. But I got a good feeling about the Flumps this year. I think they could do something a bit different.
I'd love to see it. I would absolutely love it. Tom, what's your who's your gut coming out of this group?
Yeah, well, just kind of talking about the Flumps. They've got 6 stunty super star players they can take to the matches, and as you quite rightly say, playing against the World Edge Berserkers, there'll be a 425 difference. So there's quite a few star players coming in there. Really looking forward to some of these matches on this one. You got the 2 standards, the Dwarf and the Norse. You kind of know how they play. The same with Skaven, and I think with the Goblins, there's a bit of randomness there. So there'll be some fun matches in there.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some chaos that's going to come out of the games that Flumps are going to play, I think it's going to be amazing to see. So an interesting one in this group. So the Toxin Runners, Graham is not new. He's new to the ADBBL, so welcome to him. Not new to Blood Bowl. It'll be interesting to see. We don't know how he plays. It'll be interesting to see how he plays that Skaven team. I'm very, very keen to see how JD gets on in this group, because JD in the previous 2 seasons has brought Khorne, and he has very much been out for blood. Very much been out for blood, out for casualties, and in season 4 he did all he could to hamper my chance in playoffs. In season 5 he had a phenomenal victory over Rich with some really strong casualties and some deaths, and really did some damage there. And he's had to start playing a bit differently with this Norse team, because while they do still have all that block and they still have that strength, their armor is not as good. There's a lot of armor 8 in there. And he's had to play a bit differently. And actually watching him play now, and having played against him, he's really kind of suiting this Norse team. So for me, looking at this group, and this might be unfair on Graham because I've never seen him play. I do not know what to expect. For me, Odin's Ravens come out of this group because I think JD's really found a strong team here. Do you guys see a firm favourite in this one, or is this one of the more open groups we've got?
I think it might be an open one. Just picking up on that, like you say, we've got a few new players to the league, so they're definitely going to be wild cards because no one knows them. I'm sure a number of you have played multiple times against each other, so you do know some of your tactics and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see on these. Yeah.
Scott?
Agree. I think this is going to be a really. I think this is going to be a really interesting. We've mentioned, of course, JD in taking on, the Norse. We've mentioned the fact that Scott is going to be throwing green stunties everywhere, or just be, getting in everybody's ways with hopefully some big star players, which is what Blood Bowl's all about. If you look at the dwarf team as well, they've got really, tooled up linesmen in terms of some of the skill set. Already got a 200k almost lead, so they're going to be having maybe that target on their back. And again, how much is Jamie going to be willing to, take the gamble, put his team on the line, or not, as the case may be? So this one seems to be one of the most open ones that we'll have.
I think
Again,
so.
I think for me, it's either going to be, Are we going to name teams who we think is going to come out of this?
Go for it. Go for it. Who's your top two? Who's your top two in this group?
Top two, and he's not going to like me. Apologies. I'm going to go for JD and Scott.
I'm going to go for. Actually, I'm going to try a bit different here. I'm going to actually think dwarves. Dwarves are my nemesis, so I'm going to say that Jamie and Jamie Yates. And again, I think there's going to be a wild card. Skaven are always strong, so I reckon Graham might actually come through on this one.
Oh god, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go JD. I'm gonna go JD and Scott, but I think a wild card could come out of this group because I think it will be tight. I think that's what I'll go for. I'm tempted to sit on the fence and not make a decision, but I'm going for it. I'm going for it. And we'll move on to the next group. We'll go on to Vermouth. Vermouth.
Yes.
I think it's Vermouth, isn't it? And we look at, I think, one of the scarier groups out there. We've got OTFC, inaugural champion James. We've got Riotous Rams, two-time champion Rich. We've got Cruel Britannia KO Nick, and we've got the Double Yokes Sam. I think Rich was happy with this group. I don't think James was, and I'm not sure how much Nick would have enjoyed this group either. I'm glad I'm not in it. Tom, you glad you're not in it?
Absolutely. I faced James in the previous one with his Chaos Renegades, and he's just brutal. Yeah. I think there's something in that family. They just want to clear pictures, and he's just upped it with ogres this time. Equally, yeah, seeing Rich get all his games in practically within the first 2 weeks of the last season, and straight through. Yeah, it's going to be a tough one.
Scott, I mean, you're like looking at some of these teams. I think, there's Bashy Lizards, Bashy Chaos. Ogres have got all that strength 5. You glad you're not in this one?
Oh, without doubt. This one just had Death of Rat written all over it. And the one thing I think which is coming in, we know Rich is, and let's keep this quiet, and obviously I will disavow this, but Rich is a quality player. He does know his way around a Blood Bowl pitch. James, similar, and James, as you said, he will take all of your players from you with a smile on his face and a wink in his eye. If you also add into the fact that Sam has moved up this year, the double yokes, he's going for the Lizardmen. He's really seemed to enjoy it. He beat the Hot Spews 3-0 in a pre-season warmer, and he just feel the momentum is with him is building. Not just the fact that I need him to do some cabinet work for me next year, but that's okay.
This one I think is trickier to call. I think I don't see. I think it is going to be close. I think the Riotous Rams are coming out of this. Rich has got some good some good skilled up players he's managed to keep for another season. He's got, he knows how to play this team. He's done it. This is his third season with them, and if I think tactically, last season I don't think his tactics let him down. I think his dice let him down at some really key points. And he faced opponents that had much better dice. But tactically, he's one of the best in the league, absolutely. Um, so I don't see him not getting out of this group, and so and James with his ogres, James has played this ogre team a lot. He knows what he's doing there. Do I think that his ogre team can survive against the lizards? I don't know, because Sam is on an absolute roll with this lizard team. An absolute roll, like you said. That defeat, beating Scott's Hot Spews and his Nurgle team was a great result. Um,
And
I
then
think he can do it.
We can't as well, Chris. We can't overlook Nick. The fact that you're playing Underworlds, he's got the Skaven thrower, he's got the Skaven gutter runner, and you got a gutter runner, you can cause anybody problems. However, and that's where it's going to be interesting. Maybe he'll call, how will that operate against the ogres? On paper, you think, how will he cope against all there? Well, you've got the Crocs and you've got all the blockers in the double yokes as well. And as we said, Rich for Chaos, he likes a dead body left on the pitch. So this one again is one heart goes out as a fellow Skaven player for Nick. But this has a feeling there's going to be a lot of dead players left out there in this league.
Yeah. My heart was in my mouth when the balls were being drawn from this one, especially with the first two being drawn, and I was like, I don't want to be in this one. Similar with the next group as well.
Yeah, I don't. I would love to see. I think Nick's found a. Nick's kind of progressed from Black Orcs to just taking the goblins to taking the goblins, but with some of the Skaven pace. He's sort of slowly progressing through teams to find his niche. I think he's found a team that really suits him, and I think this draw is so he's got some really tough opponents there to try and get through, and I would love Nick to cause an upset. My heart says Nick causes an upset. My head says Rich, and I'm sorry James, I'm saying Rich and Sam get out of this group.
That's Christmas ruined then.
Are you guys? What are you guys? Top two. Pick your two from this one.
I think it's gonna. I think it's gonna be James and Rich. Although I know Nick. I played Nick's Underworld team when we were playing Bloodbowl, and he's not afraid just to go all out. So I think he'll just throw everything at them just to see what happens.
I'm gonna go for a bit different here. I'm going to go for Sam and I'm going to go for Rich as well. But I think James could really take that extra wild card place.
Okay. If James is watching, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry, James. We'll go to the next group. I mean, it was absolutely fantastic because I had not clocked onto the fact that that the Tetanus Hot Spews had not been pulled from the draw until Scott started to kind of go, oh no, because his name wasn't coming out and he knew what was coming for him. It hadn't even occurred to me that he hadn't been pulled yet. This is our group of death. Right, this is the one. This is the one. This is absolutely the painful group. And I don't. Let's start. I want to start in this group. I'm going to start with Jane. Now, Jane. Looking at this group, you've got three seasoned fantastic coaches in there in Scott and Dave Rue and John. You've got three really top quality coaches. But on their day, every single one of them is beatable. Every single one of them, without a shadow of a doubt. John didn't have a fantastic tournament run not long ago with this Norse team. Um, Dave went out in the last 16 last season to Skaven, and Scott, as we said, was beaten 3-0 recently by Sam's Lizards. So none of them are indestructible at all. And so Jane can cause an upset here, and I think actually she has probably got the least pressure in this group, and therefore has the best chance of causing an upset. Scott, what do you think?
Like you, I saw this being drawn yesterday evening, and I was absolutely in fear. Before I was the last one to be drawn in my group. We'll come on to that. But this one, it was pure Hollywood. It was pure Hollywood in terms of the script. Mr. Coach Acredes thought they dodged this bullet, a repeat of the season 5 final, only for it to be a charity ball, and then he got drawn in this one. And I think for everybody's entertainment, it was the draw of the night. Agree with you. I think it's there for Jane if she wants to go and if she wants to play, aggressively, because of the other teams, I can see the Hot Spews taking players out of the Raiders out of Dead Star, and everybody out of the Hot Spews. So there's going to be a lot of interesting fights. So it might seem a bit challenging for Jane, but she's got money in the bank in terms of inducements, especially against the Hot Spews and the Raiders. Yeah, I can see this being. I can see one of the big stars not making it to the knockout matches.
Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. It's the fact is that I know that Jane's always played Amazons, so it's interesting to see a new team for her. I don't know how many times she's played with the team, but some of these other teams look horrific. The Hot Spews, the volume of mutations on them is ridiculous. You're going to need to, like, as soon as you say, right, I'm going to blitz that player, you're going to have to get your rule book out and just double check that you're not screwing something up here. He's got a lot of things with foul appearance and everything like that on it, so that's going to be interesting to see. Equally, like you've said, I was very surprised because I was at the same tournament that John got absolutely pasted with a number of his games. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, and that's the good thing about Bloodbowl really, is that yes, you can be a fantastic tactician, but if the dice isn't going in your favour, you can be really up against it.
And I think actually, I don't think anyone in that group is happy with that group, and that that's quite nice that I think all four of them clearly have the kind of respect for each other that they know how good everyone is in that group. You've not got one person who's like, this is going to be easy. Everyone's like, we are a talented group here, and this is going to be. I think John said earlier in a group chat, every game is going to be a final in this group, and it might end up feeling that way, which is going to be great. Uh, Dave bringing a brand new team. I know he was tempted to redraft his Lizards, but chose to go for Shambling Undead instead. So the mummies in there are going to have the strength to go at some of these players. Who do I think's coming out of this group? I mean, this is. I think what worries me is that John had some bad dice at the Subterranean tournament recently, and Scott has had some bad dice in pre-season. Um, so what worries me is that they've both got their bad dice out the way, and that they were both they maybe were both due it, and now they've gone. So if you're into dice superstition, I'm more scared of them. I'm kind of struggling to see past the Hot Spews and the Raiders coming out of this group.
Yeah, and just quickly looking at the fixtures, I know that the Raiders are playing Jane's team is the first match of that one, and then the next one is going to be Raiders versus Hotspurs, which is currently booked in. So I don't think this is going to be a very high scoring group either, because the competition is so fierce. And I think it's going to be a very difficult one that maybe a 1-0 touched win or a 1-1 draw. I don't see anyone running away with threes or fours.
No, I think you're probably right there. Scott, what do you think?
I agree with Tom. I think come the end of the season, the positions and even a potential wild card is going to. I think it might come down to touchdowns scored. It's going to be that close. And as much as the heart says, I'd love to see David and Jane going through for the dead guys. They're going to have to play amazingly well to beat the Hotspurs and the Raiders. I mean, Hotspurs, one of the Pestigals, has got about 6 mutations already in the bag. So yes, they're going to have targets on their back, and if they get injured, okay, they're out for one, maybe another match. If they die, that's an expensive investment already gone. So yeah, going to be challenging, but I think this is the group that all the people in the league want to see. This is why we love it.
Yeah, I want to see as many of these games as possible. I think they're going to be great. And John is watching, so hello John, and a comment in the chat. The good thing about this group is you improve more quickly against great players. So
Indeed.
all four of them, which for the rest of us kind of sucks because they're all going to come out of this as goddamn superheroes, and then
Yeah.
we've got to try and get one of them in the last 16. But he's got a point. There's such talent in this one. Yeah, definitely our group of death, and good luck to all of them, because I think it's it's gonna be one to watch, and we could because of how close it could be. The interesting thing is it could be so close that we're guaranteed a wild card. It could be so close that they all score quite lowly, and we don't get a wild card. It could go either way. So, um, let's scroll. Let's keep scrolling down, shall we? Who have we got next? We have got Shawbread Tut. And how honoured we are to have one of the members of this group with us. Tom, I mean, what's your gut? What's your gut telling you when this group is drawn?
There's a bit of I'm playing against another vampire team. So that's going to be interesting. I think I'm going to put it out there and see if we'll do a tally of the number of ones we roll throughout that game, because it's going to be a high-scoring ones game on that one. It's going to be an interesting one, because I was really hoping to get some bashy teams against my vampires because of the strength and hypno gaze and things like that, but playing against already Justin with his Greystone Gladiators, he's a tough opponent. He'll definitely, I think he'll be the one that goes through in our group. The other two I haven't played. I haven't actually seen them play any games, so I don't know what they're like. So for me, maybe ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, I think this is having double vampires again. We had double lizards earlier. We've got double vampires now. There's definitely there's the element of all or nothing because of how that bloodlust can either win you or lose you a game sort of sometimes. Scott, how are you looking at this group?
I think this is going to be an interesting one. Tom has already called Justin out as the big favourite for this one. If you look at Justin, I did certainly last year when he knocked me out in the first round of the knockout stages as well. He didn't have the greatest of leagues up until that point, because I know he was down to like bare bones and lots of journeymen at one point when he went through his season 5 table as well. When he's playing the Jane and the Amazons at our team. So he really came into it then in terms of the knockout stages, and then went against who did he get knocked out of? It was Simon, wasn't it?
Yes.
Simon beat him with the Weird Hollow Wanderers. But if you look at that on paper, yeah, I agree. I think that Justin is there for favourite, but we know how Els can be very squashy at times as well. You got two teams in terms of the who can, with hypnotic gaze, with bloodlust, they feel like Skaven, which are like the vampires a lot. They're either going to destroy you completely or they'll destroy themselves, and that's only a good thing. And then Harrison, what is he going to bring to the table with his orcs? Because you do have one big bashy team in there, and he's going to have a few, not too much, but he's going to have a few bits of maybe an extra blood keg or something like that up his sleeve as well. So again, this feels that it's either there for everybody to win it themselves or lose it themselves.
Yeah, this one, I think my head tells me, like Tom said, that Justin will get out of this group. He had his season last, sort of his group stage last season was really interesting because he lost twice to John, who obviously went on to win it. He had a really tough game against Jane, where Jane played really, really well. Um, so he came out of the group stage with 3 wins and 3 losses.
Yeah.
And I think I think he maybe got unfortunate with how many he took journeyman quite often. He didn't have a full roster for most of the group stage. I think he really struggled to sort of keep players. Um, so I think with a redrafted team, he's got some good players that he's brought back. I think he will get out of this group. As far as who joins him, I think you've got 3 teams there who all 3 teams there can get out of this group. Um, I think the Biting Bats, Andy last season he started his season with a pitch clear and then had to rebuild from there. So he was always in a tough position and finished the highest 4th place team of anyone last season. So he was the highest placed bottom of the group of any team. Tom, like your season, you beat Numpties last season, sort of on your way through. You had some really good results. Mitch had some really terrible luck, but is a great player with a great team, and you beat him as well. And Harrison, Harrison couldn't do anything last season. His dice just were not playing ball. And I'm now Harrison, if you're watching this, I don't want you to take this the wrong way. I'm not gonna cheer you on from this early because I don't want. I feel like saying every week that you were gonna turn it around jinxed you. I'm gonna try my best not to do that. So I'm just I'm just gonna pretend that you're not in this group for now, and we'll see what you do, Harrison. And all the best. I hope you get some better dice than last season. Tom. I think you can get out of this group. Absolutely think you can get out of this group.
Well, I've got my first game, and it's against Gladiator on Friday. So we'll see how it goes. See how the dice go.
Live on Bloodbowl Live, I believe, but we'll look at that later. But so I'm gonna go Greystone and Bloodletters. Tom, you're also going Greystone and Bloodletters.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah. Scott.
I'm going to go for 2 vampires. Sorry,
Ooh.
Justin. Sorry. I'm hoping that we get a couple of vampires in there to really see what they're like. So how confident are you, Tom?
It's all down to the dice, I have to say. It's a lot of admin. It's a bit of a busman's holiday for me. Too much. There's a lot of admin. You have to double check everything before you even touch your pieces, and then you have to roll the dice, and then you just go, right, that's failed. Your turn.
Bold.
2 vampires it is for me, Chris. And obviously you put in the curse of the on Harrison.
I will not do it. I will not do it this year. I will not do it. I will be a silent observer, and I will keep my cheering to myself in a hope that it turns his fortune. Right, we'll go down to the next group, which is Nixon, and Scott. you are best placed to tell us about this one. You've got an interesting mix here of kind of things to come up against. Are you confident?
I'm happy with the draw. That's all I'm going to say at this stage. I don't want to obviously incur the wrath of the dice gods or Nuffle's disfavor. When this was drawn yesterday, when we saw the draw for Weichman in terms of, with the hot spews, with the Raiders, with the two undead teams, could have been a lot worse. And I think if that league is going to be all about the 1-0s, low touchdowns, and looking at where that balance lies in terms of the touchdown scored, I think for me this is potentially going to be the other end of the spectrum. You've got 1.5 teams of Skaven, Evening Simon. You've got vampires as well, who we've just talked about, and Tom can either he'll clear himself or he'll clear you off the pitch. Harry's brand new. He's taking chaos. He's played one game. I think this is a potential league where we can all win it and we can all lose it ourselves. Looking forward to this one a lot. Hopefully lots of touchdowns.
Tom, are you the third vampire team are in this one? If you could swap places with this vampire team and be in here with Chaos, Skaven and Underworld, would you swap?
Don't know. It's a very nimble, kind of dashy group, actually. As Scott's mentioned, there's a lot of rats in there. You got your vampires in there as well, and I think in fact they've gone for the vampires have actually gone for exactly the same lineup as I have. So they've got the same. Got one runner, one blitzer, 2 throwers, and 4 rerolls. And I know from playing my games, you're going to need those rerolls. I found burning rerolls was the thing. You'd get to turn 3 and you'd already burned all your rerolls. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. This one, I reckon, Scott, you'll come through on top because you've got the Skaven there. You've played Skaven before. You've got your gutter runners in there. You've got a rat ogre for a bit of fun. But the others, I just don't know. Like I say, Simon was played fantastic last season, so he might go through as well. But again, let's see what the vampires do, and equally, what can Harry do with chaos? I don't know.
I think my gut says the vampire team in this group decides this group because I played Tom. I had a great game against Tom at end of last week, and if he had 2 halves like his first half, it would have. I think he would have won 2-0, maybe more. If he had 2 halves like his second half, it could have been 4 or 5 to me. It was complete polar opposites, and it was entirely down to the dice rolls. It was entirely down to he rolled an inordinate amount of ones in that second half, and if he has a group stage like the first half, I think Tom could top this group. But if he has a group stage like the second half, I think he could be clawing for any points he can get and hoping to get some casualties. It's so 50-50 with which way it could go. I have no idea.
If you also, sorry, Chris, if you also look at Simon's team, in terms of, okay, he's got a redrafted denizens in there. But I'm just, if you look at it, yes, he might only have, what has he got? He's got his gutter runner in there. But when your gutter runner has sidestep, sprint, monstrous mouth, and sure feet, so you're looking at a 12 square strike, with that reroll for dodge, with that reroll for sure feet. It's like, that's going to possibly be painful as well in terms of that. He's got wrestle on the clan rats. He's got cannoneer and leader on his thrower. So I think it's going to be a question of maybe Simon is looking at blocking up the middle with his rat ogre who's got claws, and then one Skaven thrower and one Skaven runner in that with that level of upgrades. That's going to be very painful if he catches you wrong.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Oh, who's my top two from this one? I'm not gonna go first because I don't know. Tom, who's your top two?
I think it's going to be rats all the way, both sets. I think. Even though I'd be cheering on the vampires, I still think it's going to be the case that it's going to be Skaven and Underworld Deniers.
Scott?
My ambition at the group this year, if I can do that, I'll be a happy bunny. Sorry, Tom, I know this is going to motivation, but I'm going for, I think it's going to be rat 1 and rat 1.5. So for me.
Oh, Tom has
Say it
played.
as is, Chris. Say it. If you want to go Simon and Tom,
It's Tom. Tom is the one that is causing my confusion because I know that Tom has played 7 vampire games in preparation. He has won 5, drawn 1, lost 1. He knows what he's doing with this team. I think I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Underworld top, and I'm gonna go Skaven second, and I think that Tom may get one of the wildcard spots. I think we could get because of those two skate the amount of grats in this team. I think we could have a very high scoring, but also a very high casualty group here, a bit like Simon's group last season. So I think there's a lot of points that are going to come out of this group, and I'm gonna go Underworld, Skaven, and Wildcard Vampire.
Nice.
So, uh,
controversial.
slightly controversial, possibly. Oh, and we're down to our last group. Well, look at how we fly through. And we've got our last group, which is I think this group could be very entertaining. We've got the Kraken Skull Cannoneers, Goblins, Gilded Knights of Cerulean, Khorne. We've got the Amazons, Makua. Ah. We've got the Amazons and we've got the Numpties with the dwarfs as well. And I think the easy claim to make is that the numpties are getting out of this group. I think that's almost it feels too easy, and I think it's probably harsh on the other 3 teams. So I think are going to put up a real fight. But I think that do either of you think that Elliot is not making out of this group?
I played Elliot last time, and it's interesting because he's actually this time bringing a death roller. So that's going to be interesting to see. He's got two. He's got a horrible blitzer with guard and mighty blow, as well as a lineman with grab guard and mighty blow as well. So but only 2 rerolls. So we'll see how that goes. The others, I think this one has the most variety of gameplay. I think out of all these groups, because a lot of the other groups are pretty standard. How you're going to play it. However, we've got Phil who's playing Khorne for the first time, and I've played him against Khorne, and his first game we played was he played them like elves, and then realized frenzy gets you in a lot of trouble. And he was a lot more cautious the next time. So I think he's going to learn quickly, and he might be a threat for at least a top spot or even a second spot in that group. And then obviously, like you say, you've got the Amazons who are tried and tested. They're pretty nimble. There's a number of pretty nice skills on some of them: sure feet, sure hands, block on a number of them. So it'll be an interesting group to watch as well.
Scott, are you? What do you think of this one?
Yeah, the one we haven't talked about the fact that Robert's coming in there. He's going to be playing the new team. He's got a couple of trolls in there and a loony, and he's got lots of things to throw, whether they're stunned, prone or not. He's also going to have, looking at that, 200, 250k in terms of inducements. If he wants to bring in a really good level star player, there's a big lot of potential in there as well. Whether or not he's going to bring something in with a bit more agility, thinking of that, for against the numpties. On paper, Elliot looks really, really, really strong, especially with those upgrades in the roller. Elliot, did he use all of his luck quota last year in season 5? But again, this one does feel very much almost a Wykerbun light. But we've said that about so many of them, which is the great thing this season. On their day, any one of these teams could beat each other. So, you can't wait for it to start. But for me, I'm going to go for, just because I can, I'm going to go for Robert and Phil. Sorry, Chris and Elliot.
I got a message from Phil after the draw was done, asking whether he had a chance to get out of this group. And I think he absolutely does.
Phil.
I think you've got, I think, Tom, like you said, I think of any group out there, we've got the most variety here. I think everyone's going to go into every game differently. You're not always facing a bashy team. You're not always facing whatever. You've got the most variety in the kind of opponent you're going to get. You've got the option. You've got dodging round you. You've got frenzy out for blood. You've got a bunch of block and tackle. You've got throwing goblins, all the secret weapons and all of that. It's going to throw out some really interesting pair ups, and it's going to you can't play the same every game. You're going to have to mix it up quite a lot. I think Elliot is going to have he's going to have what he needs to give Robert a really tough time. He's going to be able to give Chris a really tough time. I think if Phil can get some good hits in there against those dwarves with his Khorne, he may end up doing everyone else in that group a bit of a favour. Could be keeping an eye on those 2 games. And Robert, I think, looks like in this group he looks on paper like the underdog, but I would never discount Robert for throwing something in there. He's a former tournament winner, 3rd place in season 4 with an amazing team that he built, and in that season he went into his last game and had very few players. He was really, really grinding to get a victory in his last game to get out of the group, and pulled some miraculous things out of the bag on his way to 3rd place. I think I would not discount him at all, even though he looks bottom. Who do I send out of this group though? I think it's my heart says Robert, but my head says numpties and the Knights.
Okay. I think it's going to. I reckon it's going to be the dwarves and Amazons.
Okay. I think the one thing we can guarantee, gents, we'll probably get this all wrong, and that's a good thing.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, that's our last group. So the last thing before we close up and we let everyone get back to their evenings. And this is going to be what we're going to get more wrong than anything else throughout the entire last hour that we've been going through. Scott, you first. Give me your top 3 and your best stunty.
Best stunty. I'm going to go for Scott and the Flumps. In top 3 at the moment, I'm going to go for this. And apologies now for putting the kiss of death on these people. I'm going to go for Dave for the Scale Marys. In terms of the other 2, I'm going to go, as much as it's great to me at the moment, I think I'm going to go for Oda Creedies as well. I can see the Hot Spews have it. Maybe it could be their season. Who knows? And then the other one who I'm going to go for, which I can see, just going to go for it as well. As long as it's a Rats team, I don't really care. That's the main thing.
Tom, what are you thinking?
I think for stunties, I'm actually going to go with James and his ogres. I reckon he's going to really play them well. Top three, that's difficult because you've got some really good players, but they're all bunched up into groups. So I wonder whether you might find that you might see some of the other teams coming through a little bit more. So you might see maybe JD with his Norse up there. Then equally, it could be yourself, Chris, there, and also you, Scott. Not that I'm giving you two the kiss of death either.
Yeah, that's it, Tom. If we don't get out the groups, that's it. We know where you
We have it
go,
on
Mike.
video that you jinxed us. There's no going back. I think best stunty. I'm gonna completely contradict myself, and I'm gonna go with my heart, and I'm gonna say that Robert is going to find some fantastic groove and claim best stunty, which is completely against how I've said every group's gonna go. But I'm gonna say that Robert's gonna claim best stunty. I'm gonna say top three. Based on the way seasons tend to go, Scott on the Tetanus Hotspurs will finish second because that's what happens. He always goes quarterfinals, final, quarterfinal, final, quarterfinal, final. So we're due a final performance, and he will finish second. I think I'm gonna say that Elliot and his numpties will beat him in the final, and he will claim his first title. And I'm also going to go Scale Marys for third because I think Dave is a force to be reckoned with. So I'm going Numpties, Nurgle, Scale Marys. Well,
I think a new champion would be good.
yes, I think we all would love to see a new title, a new title holder, and a new person picking the balls next season.
Sorry, John.
Thank you both so much. Just before we go, we'll just say that there are some fixtures coming up, which we will be streaming. So Greystone Gladiators versus Tom's very own Batfink Bloodletters on Friday at 6 p.m. We'll have that one live for you. Scale Marys versus Bitey Ducks, myself, on Sunday morning at 10 a.m. That's an early one if you're up early and need something to watch with your cup of tea on a Sunday morning. And we've yet to absolutely confirm this one. We're just making sure it's going ahead, but we will have Tetanus Hotspurs versus the Iceborne Raiders on December the 1st at 6:30, a replay of the semi-final, that one. So we'll bring you those three, and we'll update you more as we know what other games are coming up as well. A huge thank you to Scott and Tom for joining me for this ramble today. So thank you very much to both of you.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Looking forward to more rambles, more inane witterings over the course of the next few weeks. And more bitter tears.
We'll be back next week for Monday Night Roundup, which will be probably from 6. We may do it a bit later. We're going to try and get more people in on the Roundup, so if we need to do it later to accommodate that, we will. And we'll bring you all of the first week's fixtures and all of the action that has happened in the last week. So
Go. Sorry,
yes.
Chris. Was there any announcement on the team reveal?
Thank you. I was going to forget. I said I'd do it first, and I didn't. Thank you, Tom. Yes, the team reveal competition. We'll post this on Facebook as well, just so no one misses it. Thank you to everyone who submitted some entry to the team reveal. They were all phenomenal. Like, we had some people really pulled things like out of the bag. It was such a great look through. Such a great sort of selection of videos we had. Everyone's gonna get. I'm gonna print something for like a little thing for everyone who took part, because it was so great to see all the videos. But the winner, who has one free 3D print on me, that does go to Flumps and to Scott for his Flumps video, which just has me in stitches every single time I put it on. A big shout out to everyone. A shout out to Claudia Winkleman appearing for Nick, to an actual Sky News broadcaster appearing for JD. A really, really good group, but well done to Scott. our winner. So you get in contact with myself for something that you would like printed, and congratulations to you. Thank you for the reminder. Thank you for the so that I didn't forget to do that. And yeah, good luck to all of our coaches, and we will we'll see you all next week. So thank you very much.